The Dallas Cowboys just changed everything. So we're going to be going through that and 3 other stories in today's video. So make sure to like this video. And if you want more Dallas Cowboys news content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel by hitting that red button down below. The Dallas Cowboys roster continues to take shape as the 2023 NFL regular season rapidly approaches. Although the preseason is of no playoff consequence, it's certainly meaningful when you are evaluating individual players, roster battles, depth chart positions, and more. Players can make a name for themselves in the preseason and use the momentum they build in exhibition games to be able to contribute in meaningful ways when the games actually matter. And the Cowboys roster is very deep. It's one of the better all-around rosters in the league right now, and there are young players stepping up in the preseason to make it even better. The team has needed help at wide receiver for a couple of years now, and although they've taken more of an economical route to doing so, it looks like the Cowboys may have another hit on their hands in Jalen Tolbert. Tolbert wasn't heavily involved as a rookie, of course, but many people have expected him to ascend in his second season, perhaps pushing Michael Gallup for playing time. As one of the team's top performers in camp and preseason, the 2022 third-round pick looks well on his way to doing that. So what do the Dallas Cowboys have in Jalen Tolbert? I think it's clear they have an emerging young receiver who is ready to take on a bigger role. He is a vertical threat, has strong hands, can win contested catch situations, and Mike McCarthy can, finally, move him around the formation. There's no question that he needs to be more involved this season after what the Cowboys have seen in training camp and the preseason. His confidence is growing, and when a guy with this level of talent starts to play fast, he becomes so dangerous to the opposition. Dallas desperately needs its receiver depth to show up in big ways this season, and Tolbert looks like he could be a major factor. Of course, the man of the hour right now for the Dallas Cowboys is running back Deuce Vaughn. He's quickly becoming one of the most interesting players league-wide this preseason, not just in Dallas. Everyone is intrigued to see what he's going to do next with his outstanding speed, quickness, elusiveness, and vision as a ball carrier. Vaughn was obviously highly productive at Kansas State, but there were some valid questions about how easily he would translate to the NFL being just 5'6" and 176 pounds. So far in the preseason, he's averaging 4.92 yards per carry with 2 rushing touchdowns, and he's also caught 4 passes. Vaughn is impressing everyone, and his stock is undoubtedly skyrocketing. What you really love to see on this touchdown run is the fact that Vaughn is able to break an arm tackle while simultaneously spinning to avoid the next guy trying to hit him. Elusiveness does not just mean making people miss in space. It means making people miss in some congested areas as well, and Vaughn can do both at a high level. Is Deuce Vaughn big enough to carry the ball 200-plus times per season? Maybe not, but he will certainly have a role for this Cowboys team, and he'll continue to be one of the most interesting players in the NFL. He has such a toughness about him when he runs between the tackles, and defenders obviously have a hard time getting him to the ground, not just because he's shifty, but because he is hard to see behind blockers as well. Vaughn's arrow continues to point straight up. To say it's been a bit of a rocky road for Kelvin Joseph in the NFL so far would be a bit of an understatement. Joseph was a second-round pick out of Kentucky, and there have been some talks early on in his career that maybe he'd be a trade or even cut candidate. But growth in the NFL is not always linear, as Joseph is finding out. He's only played 330 defensive snaps in his first 2 NFL seasons total. But he's pushing to be more involved so far in the preseason. Joseph didn't allow any completions in the Cowboys' first preseason game against the Jaguars. He allowed very little against the Seahawks and forced multiple incompletions. Part of the reason he's having success is that Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn now has him aligning in the nickel and not just outside. Moving Joseph to the slot appears to be yet another genius decision by defensive coordinator Dan Quinn and the rest of the Cowboys' defensive coaching staff. And if we're being honest, it just might have saved Joseph's career, as he went from a player who looked on his way out of the NFL to a core special teamer who is rapidly developing into a quality slot cornerback, John Owning said. Quinn has been pushing all the right buttons for the Dallas defense, so this should come as no surprise. He's not only been outstanding at helping get the defense back to a certain level of competency and even dominance in some areas, but he's also really helping a ton with player development and maximizing talent. The Indianapolis Colts have granted running back Jonathan Taylor permission to seek a trade, but the Dallas Cowboys don't appear to be a potential destination based on team owner Jerry Jones's comments, expressing confidence in his team's current personnel at the position. Clarence Hill Jr. of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram relayed Jones' remarks. The running back room begins with reigning Pro Bowler Tony Pollard, who just amassed 1,378 yards from scrimmage to go along with 12 touchdowns. He's rushed for 5.1 yards per carry over his 4-year career and has proved to be an excellent pass catcher as well, making 39 receptions each of the past 2 years. As of now, Rico Dowdle is the Cowboys' listed backup on the unofficial depth chart. DallasCowboys.com staff writer Nick Harris called him one of the stars of training camp and the preseason. "I've been impressed with Rico since the first year," head coach Mike McCarthy said about Dowdle, who has been with the Cowboys since joining as an undrafted free agent in 2020. "I love his running style. He runs angry. He pass protects with a lot of urgency. He sticks his nose in there." Malik Davis served as the team's third-string running back last year, and that's where he slots right now. He gained 161 yards and a touchdown on 38 carries, 4.2 YPC last year, his first in the NFL. Dallas also added Kansas State's Deuce Vaughn in the 6th round of this year's draft. He's impressed thus far, notably rushing for 64 yards and 2 touchdowns on 13 carries in 2 preseason games. Ultimately, the Cowboys should be fine at running back, especially with a star like Pollard leading the way. That should be the group going forward as the team readies for its 2023 season, which begins September 10th at the New York Giants. Seattle Seahawks rookie wide receiver Jaxon Smith-Njigba will undergo surgery for a wrist fracture and miss approximately 3 to 4 weeks, coach Pete Carroll said Tuesday. Smith-Njigba was injured in the second quarter of Seattle's preseason game against the Dallas Cowboys on Saturday, when he was tackled at the 1-yard line after hauling in a 48-yard reception from quarterback Drew Lock. Carroll is staying optimistic that Smith-Njigba will be able to play in the Seahawks' September 10th season opener against the Los Angeles Rams, but made no guarantees. Smith-Njigba flew to Philadelphia on Tuesday and will have the procedure soon. Seattle Seahawks rookie wide receiver Jaxon Smith-Njigba will undergo surgery for a wrist fracture and miss approximately 3 to 4 weeks, coach Pete Carroll said Tuesday. Smith-Njigba was injured in the second quarter of Seattle's preseason game against the Dallas Cowboys on Saturday, when he was tackled at the 1-yard line after hauling in a 48-yard reception from quarterback Drew Lock. Carroll is staying optimistic that Smith-Njigba will be able to play in the Seahawks' September 10th season opener against the Los Angeles Rams, but made no guarantees. Smith-Njigba flew to Philadelphia on Tuesday and will have the procedure soon. "He's going to get surgery, and he's with a hand specialist," Carroll said. "Kind of a slight fracture that we just want to make sure we do that right thing to ensure that he gets back as soon as possible and as safe as possible. We're going to be optimistic about it. 3-4 weeks, we'll see what happens." Smith-Njigba, who was a star receiver at Ohio State, was set to begin the season as the Seahawks' number 3 wide receiver behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett prior to his injury, and has performed well in training camp since getting picked 20th overall by the Seahawks. Smith-Njigba is just the latest Seahawks rookie to miss time with an injury. First-round pick Devin Witherspoon has spent the preseason dealing with a hamstring issue, while fellow 2023 draft picks Zach Charbonnet, shoulder, Kenny McIntosh, knee, Mike Morris, shoulder, and Olu Oluwatimi, elbow, have all dealt with injuries in training camp. Seahawks linebacker Jordan Brooks participated in 11-on-11 drills Tuesday, his first on-field action since tearing the ACL in his right knee in Week 17 last season. Brooks was activated off the physically unable to perform list on August 15th, less than 8 months after undergoing knee surgery. Brooks took part in walkthroughs for the past week, before getting the go-ahead to hit the field. With nearly 3 weeks to go, Carroll expects Brooks to play in the season opener. "He felt so good about being back out playing football," Carroll said. "He's working really hard to get back, and he's proven it to the trainers and the doctors and everybody that there's no question he can get back on the field now." Seahawks safety. Jamal Adams could be activated off the PUP list either Wednesday or Thursday and start participating in walkthroughs, Carroll said. Adams suffered a torn quad tendon against Denver in last year's season opener and missed the rest of the season. Dallas Cowboys coach Mike McCarthy routinely raves about players who make a huge jump in play and production in their second NFL season. The nervousness and newness as a rookie gives way to an air of comfort and confidence. allowing a player to realize their potential. The second-year jump is universal for everyone from Pro Bowlers and All-Pros like Micah Parsons to draft picks to undrafted players making the roster after spending time on the practice squad. And while the Cowboys have seen an increased level of comfort and expectations for 2022 rookie draft picks in guard Tyler Smith, tight end Jake Ferguson, and defensive end Sam Williams, no one has made a bigger jump from last year to this year so far than receiver Jalen Tolbert. Tolbert was a disappointment as rookie in 2022 after curiously being picked in the third round out of South Alabama and given the task of helping replace veteran receiver Amari Cooper. Tolbert was active for just 8 games last season, catching just 2 passes on 3 targets. His lack of production is one thing, but the moment that truly puts his disappointing season in perspective when he lined up offsides in an overtime loss to the Green Bay Packers when the Cowboys were trying to get in field goal range.